Hi everyone, and welcome back to fearmeitsbre. We're on episode 39 of this show. I was thinking episode 40, but that won't be till probably Monday or Tuesday, depending on when I end up recording. Mondays tend to get kind of funky for me. Usually I set out to start the week and I intend to record something on Monday, but Mondays are Mondays. We all know this. So sometimes being a mom and, having a life outside of the internet, Mondays are Mondays for me and I can't record, so I shift it to Tuesdays. So this is episode 39, as I said, and we're going to be talking about a few different things from the Utah man that everybody seems to have an opinion on and is just all over Twitter right now. We're going to be talking about a few abortion articles, specifically the state of Maine on that LD 1619 again, and then we're going to be talking about the story in Florida that's a little bit old now, but it's still very interesting, and I had it brought up to me again recently about the school district concealing the court case filings from the parents, or however it went. We're going to look at an article on that because I need to refresh myself as well on it. So we're going to look at that, and then I think that's everything that I have. I have my bookmarks on Twitter open because I know that there's things in there that I wanted to read. I just don't have them, my brain knows where to go. Let's just say that. So, before I begin, if you're interested in seeing the crap I say, you can go on Twitter and you can look through all that. And if you would like to just see... Yeah, no, I won't say non-political stuff because my Instagram does tend to have a mixture. But Instagram is more of a positive, happy place where I post a little bit less terrible things than Twitter and politics and just, that. So Instagram's slightly happier. If you want to go there, you can follow me there at fearmeitsbre. You can follow me on Twitter at fearmeitsbre. You can look at my Substack, which I think is under fearmeitsbre. The URL's kind of funky. They finally just let me update things with that. So I can be found in all those places. And if you don't want to, that's fine as well. If you like and you subscribe to this video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, that's wicked helpful. I never think to say that, so now that I've actually thought to say that, please do so because it would greatly benefit me. So we're going to start with, I'll say let's just start with the Maine abortion thing because that's interesting to me. Maine was, I got an email that they were debating a people's veto on the LD 1619, which is the bill that I went and testified against, that would allow full-term abortion right up to birth in the state of Maine for any and every reason under the sun. So they were considering a people's veto. They did not do that, according to Laurel Libby, the representative who organized the whole Speak Up for Life, which spoke against the bill. According to her, their focus, it sounds like, instead of a people's veto, which would be minimum $3 million to be able to even do that, would be to put money into pro-life candidates to run in 2024, or whenever the next election is here. My brain's just not thinking about that right now for some reason. But I believe it's, next year. So they want to try and put money into running good candidates who can help fight it. Because they were saying it would cost a lot less to try and put 10 people into the legislature. That will help with future bills and help to keep this kind of thing from happening again. Instead of focusing so much time and money on one bill that's gone through, maybe down the road they can change things through legislature. I agree, but I don't agree. I still think this specific bill should be shot down and fought as hard as possible, but I get what they're trying to do. So we're gonna... That actually might be a spider on the ceiling. I don't like that. We're not going to think about it. We're going to focus on Maine and its problems with abortion. Let's do that. So let's hop over to the article. I have it pulled up over here. So it's from the Associated Press. And it starts out with, opponents of Maine's new abortion law won't seek to nullify it through a referendum. That's Janet Mills, the governor of Maine, signing. I'm assuming that's the bill she's signing in, unless it's just a stock image of her signing up any bill, because they do that sometimes. But since it's such a historic bill, it's probably exactly that. Groups opposed to Maine's new law expanding abortion access won't attempt to nullify the statute through so-called people's veto referendum. Republican Representative Laura Libby, Speaker, my words, Republican Representative Laura Libby, leader of the Speak Up for Life group, said Wednesday that allies decided that the cost of collecting signatures and running a campaign represented too big of a hurdle. Instead, the groups intend to focus on electing candidates who are opposed to abortions. It's kind of funny because my husband and I were talking about this last night because both of us were like, I don't know. I still feel like they should fight this thing tooth and nail. I get what they're doing, but I mean, you have to wait for the election to happen. You have to build up. And then I just half jokingly was like, I could probably run for that kind of thing. I think you have to be 25 to run for state legislator. I'd be able to run next year. Not saying I am, and I'm not. But I just found it kind of funny that we were like, that actually could kind of happen, but it's not going to. But no, that's the thing though, is they want people to run who are minded like me, who would be like, nope, we're going to fight these bills tooth and nail, anything we can do to keep this from happening. That's what they're hoping to get, as we're about to see her say. At the end of the day, we want to put our effort in the most effective place possible, Libby, a Republican from Auburn, told the Associated Press. That means flipping legislative seats, she said, particularly in the Maine House. The bill signed into law by Democratic Governor Janet Mills last month allows abortions at any time if deemed medically necessary by a doctor, making the law one of the nation's least restrictive. So, okay, medically necessary. People hear that and they're like, oh, that's fine, right? Medically necessary. That just means like she's hemorrhaging. If the baby stays inside of her, it will kill her. Like things like that, where people are like, oh, that's fine because that's a medical emergency. No, they've started categorizing things as medically necessary. Things such as, well, I don't have a lot of money and I don't really want to pay to have a child. That's now considered a medical necessity. Things like, the dad and I, we just didn't work out. I don't want to have his baby. That's medically necessary because they would consider that like a mental health thing. Anything now is considered medically necessary. They have changed the definition. They've changed the rules so much that is a meaningless phrase now. It does not mean the rarest, most frightening, hard decisions have to be made or somebody's going to die, which is what people in their minds, they're like, that must be what that means. It is not what that means anymore. 100%. And it is very manipulative wording when they choose to say that now because, as I said, that phrase no longer has meaning. And doctors can sign off on any of that stuff. They could sign off on, say that happened. Say that I was somebody who had a one-night stand, I got pregnant, and then I was like, I don't like this guy. I'm probably never going to see him again. I don't want to have his baby. I could go to a doctor and they'd say, all right, say no more, ma'am. Sign it away and be like, yep, she can have an abortion. That's medically necessary now. The previous law, the Reproductive Privacy Act of 1993, banned abortions after a fetus became viable outside the womb at roughly 24 weeks, with an exception if the patient's life is at risk. Viability, I've heard it argued that arguing the point of viability is one of the dumbest arguments that you can make to argue for abortion, because the point of viability changes with science. There was a time, 1830, was a baby viable if it was born early? Probably not. They did not have the technology and the medical science to keep that baby alive outside the womb. As science progresses, viability is pushed further and further back to a point where we might end up having women conceive babies. Maybe from the moment of conception almost. We could get so far that viability starts from day one. So how does that define a person's personhood? Where it's like, well, about 100 years ago, your point of viability was 39 weeks, but now we've got it so viability can mean 20 weeks. What if it gets pushed to day one? You can't use that argument to defend abortion anymore, and it drives me nuts when people do. Viability is I hear footsteps. I think we're still good. Viability, science proves that the point of viability can be pushed back further and further and further. I lost my train of thought. I'm trying to complete the thought I had, but I got distracted because I thought I heard the pitter-patter of feet out there. But we're just going to keep going. But I think you understand what I was trying to say. Wednesday marked the deadline to notify state officials of a people's veto, a constitutional provision allowing citizens to repeal legislation through a statewide vote. To move forward, more than 67,000 signatures would have been needed. Mills presented the bill expanding abortion access after a Yarmouth woman came forward with her story about having to travel to Colorado for an abortion after learning at 32 weeks of her pregnancy her unborn son had a fatal condition that would not allow him to survive. So what you would rather do, instead of making that baby as comfortable as possible and allowing it sounds terrible, but letting it pass in the arms of its mother, safe and surrounded by love, you'd rather say, well, let's just get it over with early. Let's tear it out of the womb. Let's inject some poison into its skull. Let's stop its beating heart. Let's make sure that it dies the most slow, excruciating, painful death ever. And let's make it early so that we don't have to do this later. It's ridiculous. So you'd rather just, oh, well, your baby might not make it, which, by the way, sometimes that's not even true. People have had this happen and had perfectly healthy babies born. That's not always the case, obviously, and it's very tragic when it's not the case. But who are you to say, well, that child is not worth having a shot at life because they have this disorder? Or, well, let's just dismember them, get it over with early. It's barbaric. Critics said the law's language was broader than necessary if the goal was simply to allow abortions in instances of fatal fetal anomalies later in a pregnancy. They also said the bill put too much power in the hands of doctors. Passage was considered a foregone conclusion in the legislature, where Democrats controlled both the chambers, and there were enough co-sponsors to ensure passage. But the vote was close in the House after emotional testimony. Besides Maine, 6 states leave a decision to get an abortion to doctors and their patients without restrictions. They are Alaska, Colorado, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, and Vermont, and Washington, D.C., which are evil, evil places. That was a unprecedented turnout for that opposition to that bill. And we had Democrats, we had people threatening legislators. There were Democrats who were swayed and who were going to vote in opposition to the bill. And they were going to side with the Republican legislator because they were like, oh, yeah, the people don't really want this. So what they did is they had the vote going, and then they called a break, and then they harassed and chased them down, followed them to their offices, threatened them, and made sure that they voted in favor of this bill. They played dirty, dirty politics and scared them into voting in favor of the bill, which is terrible because the bill should not have passed. The way the vote was going, it should not have passed, but they were willing to do anything and play dirty to get it to pass. It's shameful. And yes, in Maine, everything is run by the Democrats, the House, everything, the governorship. So I get why they want to focus their efforts into running pro-life, Republican, or more conservative, not necessarily maybe Republican, but at least more conservative candidates, because it's going to hell in a handbasket at this point, and it's very sad. But anyway, that was a little update on that bill, because even though it's gone through, people have still been trying very tirelessly to defeat it and see if it could be reversed or vetoed. And I find it strange, right? Maybe it's just me, but a people's veto, why does it cost so much money to do that? Aren't the people supposed to be able to say, hey, we don't like this. We don't like what you're doing. We, the people, elected you, and you're not listening to us. We want this changed. We want to change it. Why does it cost minimum of $3 million to do that? Right in the email that I got from Laura Libby, it said that, right? I have that in print, that was one of the decisions, is because of how much money it would cost to overturn one bill versus being able to put their money and resources into running multiple candidates to help with future stuff and maybe come back to this bill. Anyway, I don't understand that. Why it's such a big thing. Like, shouldn't the people be able to say that they don't like something and have it challenged without having to cash in and pay for it? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reading into it wrong, but I think it's kind of ridiculous that it's that way. So that is going to lead us into the article that I have pulled up from Live Action. We're going to open that link, and I'm going to go back over here because I just realized that it's just been my face this whole time and I have wanted the article up. All right. Would pregnancy outcome laws protect women who throw their babies in the trash? News broke last week that a 19-year-old Alexei Treviso had attended prom just weeks after giving birth to a baby boy and hiding him in the hospital garbage, leaving him to suffocate. Under new laws in certain states, many experts have stated that such an act could be considered a pregnancy outcome and therefore would be legal. So what she did, I watched the video of the officer talking about it, and it is disgusting. She went into the bathroom, delivered the baby while it was still breathing. She took trash out of the trash can, and she put the baby in the trash can, and then put the trash bag, over it so the trash looked like it was empty and ready to receive trash. She tried so hard to brutally suffocate and get rid of this infant. And she should be in prison for life, if not the death sentence, because that's homicide. That's murder. It is willful murder. Treviso lives in New Mexico and is currently facing the charges of first-degree murder and tampering with evidence in the death of her son. An autopsy revealed she had suffocated. But if she convinces a jury she didn't know she was pregnant, will she be acquitted of killing him? So this is where it gets messed up, right? If she can say, well, I didn't know I was pregnant, and then he just flew out of me, and I didn't know what to do, so I was scared, so I took a living infant and I suffocated it, then she might get acquitted under these laws that they are trying to come out with. California Governor Gavin Newsom and Colorado Governor Jared Polis, of course it's them, have both signed into effect laws that would prohibit prosecution due to pregnancy loss. And now people hear that and they think, well, that's good, because what if a woman has a miscarriage and she's afraid that she's going to be accused of having induced an abortion? No. Miscarriages are not going to be prosecuted. They're not on these laws as abortions. They are medically categorized mistakenly by hospitals as abortions. I've known people who have gone in, miscarried, and had, the already passed away baby removed from them because they can't pass it at home. They can't deliver it on their own. They have to have medical intervention for the already passed away, already dead, putting it bluntly, child. That is not an abortion. It is an extraction, but I've known people that have been hurt by that when they see their medical paperwork that it says like spontaneous abortion or that, they had to abort the fetus. And it's like, no, it was not an abortion. An abortion is the intentional and methodical taking of a life, right? An abortion is the killing of an infant human being. That's not an abortion. Anyway. In Michigan, Proposition 3 would do the same. The language of the legislation could allow for abortion survivors and babies born with disabilities to be left to die and prevent the prosecution of infanticide. It could also allow for mothers who discard their newborns like garbage to avoid prosecution. That is so disturbing because how many people I heard when I was in the Maine state legislature testifying against their bill? You have no idea how many people I heard get up and testify that they were an abortion survivor. And if this bill had been in place when their mother delivered them, they probably wouldn't be here today. How many lives would have been needlessly lost, snuffed out? How many people that exist now and are society? Half of society would not exist if this kind of thing happened. Children born with disabilities, sometimes those disabilities aren't even there, where they say there is a 90% chance that your child might, but then they're born perfectly healthy. That happens all the time. Again, it's not always the case. Sometimes tragic things happen, but those are the exceptions, not the rules. You shouldn't just kill children because they might be born with Down syndrome. Where is it? Is it Iceland? I could be wrong, but is it Iceland or Ireland that has completely eradicated Down syndrome and everyone's like, that's a good thing? But the reason is because they aborted every child that they did the fetal scans and said, that one's going to have Down syndrome. Abort it. And it was law that you had to abort your child if they came up for Down syndrome. That's terrible. That's barbaric. That is completely erasing a people group, right? And I've known people who have Down syndrome, and they're some of the sweetest people I know. Why are we advocating for killing them? And then being left to die. Can you imagine? This isn't just, okay, there's nurses who have told stories of babies being born, and the mother, what was it? Was it the governor? Was it Virginia? Remind me again of the state where he said, well, the baby would be made comfortable and we would leave them on the table, basically. And the mother and the doctors would decide among themselves what they wanted to do with it. The baby would be made comfortable and be allowed to just die. They starved them to death. They There's been babies that nurses have reported that they've quit their jobs because they've been like, put it in the supply closet. I can't stand the sound of it crying. Put it in there till it's done. In other words, put it in there till it's dead. And there's been nurses that have been told, you know, do not feed that baby. Do not do anything to that baby. Just leave it there. And they've been emotionally scarred by that because they've literally metaphorically rocked these babies to sleep in their arms because they can't do anything or the hospital will prosecute them for saving the infant's life. Leaving a child who survived in a botched abortion to die on a cold steel operating table? Oh, we'll make them comfortable. It's ridiculous, and it's it's barbaric. I don't understand why it is infanticide. Infanticide is evil. It could also allow for mothers who discard their newborns like garbage to avoid prosecution. California's Law Assembly Bill 2223 states, notwithstanding any other law, a person shall not be subject to a civil or criminal liability or penalty, or otherwise deprived of their rights under this article, based on their actions or omissions with respect to their pregnancy or actual potential or alleged pregnancy outcome. Pregnancy outcome, including miscarriage, stillbirth, or abortion, or prenatal death due to a pregnancy-related cause, emphasis added. Okay, so endometriosis can cause issues with pregnancy. What else can? Septic pregnancies. There's all kinds of things that can cause something like this to happen where you have to make the hard choice where two people are going to die if you do not make a decision. If you do this procedure, at least one will survive. And they try and categorize that as an abortion because they're like, well, look, if this woman didn't have an abortion, we would lose her due to this little child who can't even survive on its own. Obviously, we want to save the woman. And it's like, listen, these things are not explicitly intended to kill somebody. Most women who are in these situations and have to have some kind of weird emergency thing where the exceptions are allowed, again, these exceptions are allowed. Even though Roe v. Wade was overturned, they still allow for these exceptions. So I don't get why people are freaking out. But anyway, so they try and categorize those as an abortion for a talking point. But the abortion, again, is the intentional taking of the child's life, where you say, no, we don't want that. We don't want that fetus. We are going to remove it from you, resulting in its death. Whereas with these kinds of scenarios, a lot of times it's that hard decision of we will do everything we can to save both of you, but the odds of the baby dying, unfortunately, are very high because of, again, science and the point of viability are at this point, whereas down the road, they could be at this point. That's just, unfortunately, an outcome. And even Planned Parenthood, I actually had saved in a Substack article I wrote that Planned Parenthood does not consider these procedures abortion for these reasons. I think that they may have changed it now, but I have a screenshot of it and the direct quote from Planned Parenthood saying that. Now, if you go to the website, I don't know if it's changed, as I said, but these are not abortions. These things are already mostly protected. Stillbirth, miscarriage, those are protected. Okay, you're not going to go to prison for a stillbirth. You're not going to go to prison for a miscarriage. Now, if there was foul play in the sense of the doctors, and you as the woman, as the laws seem to read, you are not going to go to prison for going and getting an illegal abortion. The provider is the one who is breaking the law. Again, morally, you are as well breaking the law because you are willfully allowing the murder of your child. But as the law stands on the books, the person who is going to prison in the situation is the provider who commits the act. So, because the bill failed to define what is meant by prenatal death, there is concern that there would be no investigation into any newborn's death. Originally, the bill's language had said, a person shall not be subject to civil or criminal liability or penalty or otherwise deprived of rights based on actions or omissions with respect to the pregnancy or actual potential or alleged pregnancy outcome, including miscarriage, stillbirth, abortion, prenatal death. The addition of the phrase to pregnancy-related causes was meant to alleviate those concerns, but it did not. So, why is it that if we read a story about a man beating his pregnant wife and the baby dies in the womb, oh no, that's so terrible, he's now being charged with homicide because he murdered his unborn child? Why is that something that happens? But yet when somebody has an abortion, it's like, oh, that wasn't alive. There's a reason that someone is charged for homicide when they murder an unborn child in a non-abortion setting, it just does not make sense. Could broad loopholes and wow, I think I need to drink this coffee. It is also getting very warm in here, and I cannot run the fan while I'm doing this because of the type of microphone I'm using. It picks it up like crazy, so we're not able to run our fan or have the door open for the AC. So this room's getting kind of steamy. I should have brought a water in as well, but I was trying to do this quickly, so I grabbed my coffee and I ran. All right. Could broad loopholes and vague language legally allow infanticide? These amendments added perinatal death due to pregnancy-related causes, explained Teresa Brennan, president of Right to Life League. The amendments do not address the fact the bill would continue to chill reporting investigations of any prenatal death. So that man I mentioned who beats his wife and they lose the baby as a result, that is included in that. Because whether that death was pregnancy-related or could not only be determined after an investigation. If it turned out the infant's death was pregnancy-related, a term which is undefined, over a broad, meaningless since even... A term which is undefined, overbroad, and meaningless since even birth is pregnancy-related, an immediate private cause of action, which with damages starting at $25,000 and attorney's fees could be taken against the person who did the investigation. So you could get in trouble for investigating a homicide case where there was the death of an infant because, it was pregnancy-related, because it's so vague. The real aim of this bill is to cover up and block any investigation into late-term chemical abortions, which studies have proven will result in live births. Colorado's law, HB 1279, states that it would prohibit anyone from depriving through prosecution, punishment, or other means an individual of the individual's rights to act and refrain from acting during the individual's own pregnancy based on potential, actual, or perceived impact on the pregnancy, the pregnancy's outcomes, or the pregnant individual's health, emphasis added. So, who was that on Timcast? I don't remember who it was, where they had him on and Tim made the point where he was like, well, you think a woman should be able to do anything with her body, right? You should be able to, I'm butchering it, but should be able to abort her baby any stage because it's her body, her choice, and she can do anything with her body. And the guy was like, yeah. And then Tim was like, okay, well, can she have, was it heroin? Whatever drug he said, she take that while pregnant? The guy was like, no. Well, why not? Well, it'll harm the child. And it was like, so that sounds like the kind of situation that this law will provide for, where it's like, oh, well, she was doing heroin pregnant. She was doing coke pregnant, but we're not going to look into it and say that's what killed the baby. We'll just call it a pregnancy-related death. So that's going to affect that stuff too, because now women can do whatever the crap they want while pregnant without worrying about repercussions. Like California's new law, Colorado's law could allow abortion survivors to be left to die and could also affect babies born with a disability or a genetic condition that was not discovered until late in pregnancy, or was not discovered during pregnancy at all. So if your baby, somehow they missed on all the scans and things, like, oh, your baby has Down syndrome, oh, your baby has insert disorder here, genetic disorder. What would you like to do? I know the baby's born, but you still have an option out. And they can say, yeah, we don't want it. And they will leave that baby to starve to death and die. That's absolutely horrific. Wrongful birth lawsuits have already been filed against doctors who did not accurately diagnose a child while she was still in the womb. The bill could allow these parents to abort their child after birth, which is infanticide. A teen girl who claims she didn't know she was pregnant, as Trezevo has, might also get away with killing her newborn, especially in a state that would allow her to have abortion right up until birth. Live Action's Director of Government Affairs, Noah Brandt, explained, the intended outcome for every abortion is a dead human child, but abortionists are not always successful in their efforts. On occasion, especially during attempted abortions of preborn children in the third trimester of a pregnancy, a child can be delivered and born alive during the attempted abortion. Under the rules proposed by this bill, if the child is delivered alive during an abortion, the doctors are under no legal compulsion to provide standard medical care as they would in any other circumstance and attempt to preserve the child's life. Medical providers would listen to the mother's instructions, which could include not providing life-sustaining medical care to the child, which would lead to the child's death, which most reasonable people would consider infanticide. State legislators must focus on supporting families, not destroying its youngest members. So, I've heard it phrased in one hospital room, you might have an infant at 40 weeks who's born and their heart's not beating for whatever reason, and the mother's crying, and please resuscitate my baby, please bring my baby back, and they're doing everything they can to save that child, while in the next room, you could have a mother gives birth to her 40-week full-term infant, breathing, crying, perfectly healthy, and for whatever reason, I don't want that child, I don't want to have to deal with it, please just let it die. It blows my mind that we are at this point in the digression of society that is even on the table. Michigan's Proposition 3 prohibits the state from penalizing, prosecuting, or otherwise taking adverse action against an individual based on their actual potential, perceived, or allegedly pregnancy outcomes. Again, the state is prevented from filing charges against someone because of their pregnancy outcome. So you could beat your wife, has the baby, delivers a stillborn baby. Oh, well, pregnancy outcome, can't prove it was him. Or a woman could take drugs, pregnancy outcome. It's just ridiculous. Treating infants like literal garbage. Treviso isn't the only mother to leave her newborn to die. Another teen mom in New Mexico was sentenced to 16 years in prison, thank God, this year for leaving her newborn baby in a dumpster in January 2022. Her baby survived, thank God, after he was rescued by individuals who heard him cry. In May, a teen girl was arrested in Ohio with her newborn twins were found dead in a garbage can behind her home. She is charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of gross abuse of a corpse, 2 counts of endangering children, and 1 count of tampering with evidence. Good. And this month, twin newborns were found dead on a Chicago hospital campus. A janitorial crew found a trail of blood while cleaning the bathroom on the first floor of the hospital. The trail led to a cabinet where the crew found a black trash bag containing the 2 babies. The 29-year-old mother was found bleeding in an upstairs bathroom shortly before the babies were discovered. Authorities said she suffered a medical emergency and had an unanticipated delivery. However, the question remains why she placed the babies in a trash bag and hid them in a cabinet. Especially if she was in a hospital. She could have been like, I'm going into labor. Someone help me. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason why she couldn't have not stuffed the babies in a trash bag and put them in a cabinet. The cases are reminiscent of horrific cases used to justify legalized abortion in El Salvador. California has not been immune to such cases. A newborn baby was found in a trash can in the restroom of a gas station in Fullerton in March. He was rescued, and his mother, Vanessa Milando, was arrested, but it remains to be seen if she will be convicted or set free. I hope that she gets life. Likewise, in Michigan, this April, a 26-year-old woman in the state gave birth to her preborn baby between 20 and 23 weeks on a sidewalk and tossed the baby aside and continued on her way. She was arrested, but there is no evidence at this time that charges have been filed, and it just blows my mind that people will do that to children. You have to be a special kind of evil to even do something like that. But anyway, that was a black pill full of horrible abortion stories, but I felt like that was something that I wanted to bring up and address. We're also going to look at, what else did I say here? Again, I probably should have had these a little more easy access. So we're going to pull up the article from Chris Bertman from Timcast about the Florida school district. It's a little bit of an old article, but again, I think this is important and needs to be brought to people's attentions. So I'm going to, see if I can zoom a little. Oh, nope, that's not how I want to do that at all. All right, we're going to zoom to that, and now I'm going to switch over to the other screen. That was very weird. All right. Florida School District conceals federal case filings regarding parental rights suit from newly elected board members. Board members were not aware of filing made on their behalf seeking dismissal of a father's case regarding daughter suicide attempts on campus, gender ideology instruction by school counselor. So this was from August 10th, so it is a little old, but this is such an important thing. During an August 3rd Clay County School Board meeting in Florida, a public speaker revealed a motion had been filed on the board's behalf seeking to dismiss a pending federal lawsuit regarding one child's twice attempted suicide and gender identity without the knowledge of 2 newly elected board members. The board meeting featured a series of public speakers, including parents, expressing frustration in the district's lack of transparency in reporting incidents of violence at the district's schools to law enforcement. I'm just going to check that because it keeps going off, so I want to make sure. Okay. Didn't know if it was important. Samantha Wernet, a mother of 2 children within the school district, revealed the Clay County School Board and Clay County School District schools had submitted a motion to dismiss a civil lawsuit per an outsourced legal team regarding Wendell and Maria Perez's complaints against Patterson Elementary School regarding their 12-year-old daughter's secret meetings about her gender identity and subsequent suicide attempts on school campus being withheld from the parents between 2021 and 2022. The mother said she was saddened to learn board members had not been informed of the case's ongoing litigation and had not been informed about the case, including an amended complaint and plaintiff response along with a motion to dismiss. Warnett noted board members ran on parental rights, though she said she had obtained public records filed on the board's behalf in June, attempting to dismiss Perez's lawsuit, claiming the plaintiff's allegations were false. The mother referenced the board's August 2022 enactment of their parental rights and student welfare policy, asserting district personnel are not required to inform a parent of communications between a student and school personnel if the student is unwilling or refuses to discuss the matters with the parents. And I know they do that because they're like, well, what if there's abuse? But at this point, it is the schools that are perpetrating this abuse. They're the ones that are abusing these children, getting into their heads, messing with them. This girl tried to kill herself twice because of this ideology that has been infiltrated and creeped into her. Warnett concluded, urging the board to revisit policy passed last August, which directly violates Florida's Parents' Bill of Rights, passed in 2021, and the Parental Rights and Education Bill, signed into law in March 2022. So this is the whole thing, which I will not read because it's very, very, very long. So if you want, I will link this article so that you can read that. According to the Clay County School District's August 2022 adopted policy, personnel are also not required to inform a parent of communication between a student and a school personnel if the latter determines no change in the student's services or monitoring related to the student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being and the school's ability to provide a safe and supportive learning environment for the student, or if the information result in abuse, abandon, neglect of the child per board's policy. I believe Matt Walsh covered this as well, but Sammy Politics, also within the article, they put the video so that you can actually watch it. Parental rights and student welfare appears to directly violate state's Parents' Bill of Rights, which declares the right for parents to direct the upbringing and the moral or religious training of his or her minor child, along with preventing political subdivisions, government entities, or any other institution from infringing on a parent's rights to decide the upbringing, education, health care, and mental health of his or her minor child, without demonstrating that such an action is responsible and necessary to achieve a compelling state interest and that such action is narrowly tailored and is not otherwise served by less restrictive means. Any state employee who encourages or coerces or attempts to encourage or coerce a minor child to withhold information from his or her parent is subject to disciplinary action, according to the bill. The welfare and well-being of our children is a constitutional right, wherein it said, this is why parents battle in court for custody on who can make religious, medical, and educational decisions for their children. Parents, she declared, not government bodies. So this was the government saying, nah, it's fine. Just ignore it. The mother concluded by questioning if the superintendent, David Broski, should I say that right? Broski? Helloski. If you know what that reference is, we can be friends. Was aware of the optics of the motion to dismiss the parental rights case as defendant as it reflects on his upcoming election. During board member comments, District 4 Representative Michelle Hansen, who was sworn in last November, said she was aware of the case, though had been under the impression that the matter was settled. Clay County School Board and Clay County School District Schools Attorney Bruce Bickner, who was voted to be replaced by the board, commented on the litigation by criticizing Warnett's revelation. So, anyway, we're not going to go through the whole thing because it's super long, but that is super, super, super important. I'll read this last snippet. A 2000 Supreme Court case found a fundamental right under the 14th Amendment for a parent to oversee care, custody, and control of a child. The interest of parents in the care, custody, and control of the children is perhaps the oldest fundamental liberty interest recognized by the Supreme Court, reads Troxell versus Granville. It is cardinal with us that the custody, care, and nurture of the child reside first in the parents. So, yep. But it's insane because that's something that's still going on. If you want to look more into it, I'm going to link the article and stuff as well. I'm going to hop over here, and the last thing we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the Utah man who was killed by the FBI in his home last night. I just want to see if there's a more updated than the one that I had pulled up, because sometimes that happens. Sometimes you'll just be thinking you got all the information and new stuff emerges in about 10 minutes. Oops, I didn't spell that right. That's why it's freaking out on me. I think this is the same article that I already had up. Sorry, bear with me. I just want to make sure I'm updated on this one. Oh, here we go. 23 hours ago. They're the same article. All right. So, Utah man Craig, Delawue Robertson is shot dead by the FBI in raid after posting on Facebook credible Joe Biden death threats ahead of President's visit to Salt Lake City. So the thing that's funky about this is, granted, obviously, I don't think he should have posted the things that he posted. He clearly seemed like he was not a mentally stable person. I don't know if that justifies what happened. And one of my big beefs with it is they went in and they did all this to him. What about all these people? Because they considered him a threat. They were like, well, he was posting violent rhetoric. You know, he was talking about, I probably can't say, I don't know what I can say. I don't know if I can even read this whole article because YouTube might be like, that's an incitement of threat of violence. But the things that he was saying about Joe Biden and everyone, they weren't great, right? So what about all of these people who actually do go out and they do perform shootings, they do kill people, and the FBI was like, they were on our radar, but we just didn't have the information to act. All we had were the posts of incitement of violence, but, you know, that's not enough to act on. Why him? Okay, if you're going to start stopping people in this guns a-blazing way, why haven't you done that with anyone else? Why haven't you done that with any of the shooters, the school shooters that you guys knew were posting things? Some of them literally said that they wanted to go do what they were about to go do. Why didn't you go after any of them in this way? It just seems very fishy that they were like, yeah, we'll go after this Trump supporter, though. A Utah man has been shot and dead by the FBI during a deadly raid following years of sickening death threats against Joe Biden and other politicians. Craig Robertson, 75, was gunned down at his doorsteps by agents in Provo, an hour from Salt Lake City, after they were alerted to his posts about the president. The page, which posted pro-Trump comments, also had more death threats against Biden's brother, Kamala Harris, as well as Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. Meanwhile, he shared numerous pictures of heavy-duty weapons stacked in a huge gun cache in his house, including sniper rifles and AR-15 guns. What does that mean? Were they AR-15s or were they not AR-15s? I don't know why when I do Daily Mail, it just makes the images huge. Those are some pictures I guess he posted. Those are the weapons. This is house with FBI agents. I'm not going to read it, but just because I don't know what YouTube will do. But you can see what he wrote. I'll leave it for a second. Another post that he wrote. Which this is a little reminiscent of Kathy Griffith's. Remember when she had the severed Trump head? Why didn't they knock on her door and say, ma'am, that's a direct threat on somebody's life. That's a call to violence. Or Jane Fonda saying that pro-life activists should be hunted down and murdered on live television. And even the View hosts were like, whoa, Jane, why have those people not had an FBI knock? Being like, hey, we just got to check on you because you said some stuff. It's just fishy who they choose to go after and who they choose not to. The FBI raided his home in the early hours of Wednesday morning, just hours before Biden was due in the city for a series of speeches and visits. Special agents attempted to serve an arrest and search warrant at Robertson's house in Provo, but ended up shooting and killing him around 6:15 a.m. An FBI official said the raid was in connection with investigation into alleged threats against Joe Biden and other political figures in previous weeks. The threats involved plans to take physical action, and the FBI deemed them credible. So what about all these other credible threats of people being like, I'm going to go do this terrible thing, and then a school gets shot up the next day? Why don't they take action against those? Because 90% of the time you hear them say, they were on our radar. We were aware. Okay, what good are you then? Court documents show Robertson, who is a self-described MAGA Trumper, threatened to inflict bodily harm on Biden during his visit to Utah. So during the shootout, guns a-blazing, was he also screaming, this is MAGA country? He was facing charges of interstate threats against the president, influencing, impeding, retailing against federal law enforcement officers by threat. In a social media post he sent on August 7th, Robertson allegedly wrote, "I hear Biden is coming to Utah, digging out..." I'm going to highlight it so that you can read it, and I'm not going to say it because I don't know what's allowed and what's not. But in other words, he wanted to do something to the buffoon in chief, as he called him. I mean, clearly, so from what I'm hearing, this guy was an overweight old guy who was not mentally okay. And if the FBI was watching him and was like, this is a credible threat, why did they go in guns a-blazing and just take the old man out? Sounds like he couldn't even walk without the help of a cane. Why didn't they try and give him the mental health service he needs? Why didn't they do something about it that way? All this push for, we need more mental health resources, but not for this guy, because he didn't believe the same politics as you. This is another post that he put up. "Hey FBI, still monitoring my social media, checking so I can be sure to have a loaded handy in case you drop by again." Another post of his. It's his home with FBI all around it. Why are you smiling? Oh, that's not related. It's Biden at a conference. I was like, what? Why is Biden so happy about this? On Wednesday, President Joe Biden attended the Bidenomics on clean energy and manufacturing at Arcasa Wind Towers in Bella, New Mexico. He was just in my state, and from what I hear, he got a lot of boos when he showed up. And first of all, they didn't even tell us where he was going. They were like, oh, he's going to be there. Where? The day of, it was like, oh, he's in this town. Someone I know froze and was like, is that the president's motorcade driving by? Like, nobody had any clue where he was going to be. And then he showed up at a factory and gave a whole Bidenomics speech and then just floated away. And a lot of people were not happy with his presence in the state. Biden is expected to arrive in Salt Lake City on Wednesday afternoon and stay overnight. This is this past week. Robertson's Facebook is filled with dark messages, mainly threatening violence toward Biden and other prominent Democrats, as well as images glorifying guns. Just 2 days ago, Robertson posted, "Hey FBI," we just read that. In March, Robertson allegedly also threatened to murder New York City District Council Attorney Alvin Bragg, who was overseeing the criminal investigation into former President Donald Trump. "I'll be waiting in the courthouse parking garage with my to smoke radical fool prosecutor that never should have been elected," he posted at that time. Bye to another corrupt. He also insulted California Governor Gavin Newsom this week. That's not hard to do, though. Everybody does that. In a bizarre post that reads, "Gavin Newsom has been drinking toilet water for years, especially right after his old lady takes a dump." I've honestly seen worse posts about Gavin Newsom on Twitter. Much worse than that. Again, more images of the whole situation. To me, it feels kind of Ruby Ridge, Waco, where they took it out before there was time for any questioning of the situation. The majority of social media posts revolve around the president or his son Hunter. Many include violent and highly specific physical threats. We're not going to read that. We already saw that. Another reads, "There's only one creature in the universe I hate more than Joe Biden. It's his brother Lucifer," it's Lucifer Biden's brother. While conducting surveillance in Robertson's home on March 19th, a special agent attempted to speak with Robertson about his posts, according to Fox 13. Robertson replied, "I said it was a dream," and told the agent to come back with a warrant. The investigation began in April, and the U.S. Secret Services became aware of it in June. The FBI takes all shooting incidents involving our agents or task force members seriously, the FBI said in a statement. In accordance with FBI policy, the shooting incident is under review by the FBI's Inspection Division, and it is an ongoing matter. We have no further details to provide. Robertson had a custom woodworking business but had not renewed his license after it expired last year, according to state records. Interesting. On LinkedIn, Robertson said he worked for 45 years as a structural steel and welding inspector before retiring and starting his business, saying he specialized in custom designs. So, seems like a fairly... I don't know, he sounds like obviously, I don't think he should have posted those things that he was posting about Biden, because one, even if you mean something in a joking manner where you're like, oh, ha ha, your words are going to come back to bite you. The internet is forever, and words have consequences, right? The things that we say have consequences for us and consequences for other people. So to a degree, yes, I'm not going to say he had it coming in the sense of, oh, he had it coming, I'm glad it happened. But in a way, he had it coming because he kept poking the bear, so to speak, and he kept clearly he was talked to about it and he was like, leave me alone, which any smart person would say, come back with a warrant to anything like this if the law enforcement are harassing you about this. But he just kept poking the bear and pushing harder and pushing harder and pushing harder. Whether or not he meant the things he was saying, we won't know because he's dead. But I don't think that killing him is justifiable because, again, it has flavors of Waco or Ruby Ridge, where the FBI was like, well, for the good of the people, we did this thing. And the CIA, well, for the good of the people, we did this thing. But really, there's just so much that doesn't add up here. What about all the other people who have been on the radar? You didn't do anything about them, and they went and shot up schools. It just doesn't make sense, and it's very untrustworthy. And I do genuinely think that it was a warning shot to anybody who is questioning the current administration or anyone who has doubts about the current administration, where obviously this was a little bit of an extreme case where this guy probably should have been given some kind of mental help. Maybe he should have been watched in that sense if he really was threatening violence on people. But a lot of people say things online that they don't mean, or where they're like, I'm a big tough person, and they'll say something online. Doesn't mean that they're going to do it in real life. But at the same time, I get why they feel like they have to be careful about that kind of stuff, because they need to take threats on the president seriously, because, you know, we've had presidents be assassinated. We've had schools be shot up. We've had things happen. But there's just so much that doesn't add up that I don't think it was justified for them to break in there and kill him. I'm also still waiting for more information to come out before I really say too much about it. I'm not going to sit here and say, I support that man. Why would you do that to him? And I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, he was a total crackpot nutcase, because I don't know enough about him, and now we never will. They took out the mouthpiece before it had a chance to say anything, instead of, hey, if you really think he's a credible threat to the president's health and safety, maybe bring him in and question him. I don't know. But they chose to kill him instead. And I think that there is definitely a reason for that. So I might bring this up again in another video, depending on if I get more information on it, but I couldn't really glean much. So again, I don't want to go off on it too much without full information. And a lot of people I've talked to are like, yeah, I don't know either. I can't seem to figure out what's going on either. So it's probably an anticlimactic analysis that I just gave of this whole situation. But again, I'm not going to pitch a tent and pick a side and be like, this is how I feel 100%, because I don't know how I feel about it. I definitely would be very wary of the government narrative over it, and I would be wary of the FBI. And I mean, we know that there's been things before where they've planted things and they've made people look guilty, not saying that this is the case, but my trust in the 3-letter institutions is in the sewer. So I really don't give them much stock in this situation, and I would advise that you not either. And just keep watching, keep trying to figure out what's going on, and trust your own research, I guess. So I'm gonna end this one here. I think I covered everything I wanted to. Sorry if that was an anticlimactic speech about that. I wasn't allowed to post about it on Twitter for some reason, because Twitter just kept being like, we can't post this. Would you like to go to your drafts? Whenever I tried to say something about this topic when I originally shared this article. I did screenshot what I said about it, so let me see if there's anything in that I didn't bring up. I said, this guy was clearly mentally ill, and I'll admit his posts were very disturbing. But does that justify the FBI barging in and taking out an unwell, obese old man like he's Osama bin Laden? He was meant to be an example. Why hasn't Kathy Griffin had a knock on her door for the Trump severed head incident? That was ghoulish and violent. Why hasn't Jane Fonda had a knock on her door for stating live on a talk show that pro-life activists should be killed? And why haven't any of they were on the radar, the FBI was aware of them, violent leftists, extremists, murderers, who actually did attack and did murder people before being arrested and neutralized? But this guy, what happened to getting people the mental health care they need? And then I just said, give me a break. Did he shout, this is MAGA country, when he was firing off rounds at the FBI, or if he even did? But anyway, that's my take on it for now. And I will leave you with that. So hopefully everyone has a great weekend. We're going to a different lake than we went to last time, but we are going basically on a overnight with the kids. So that's going to be fun. I probably won't be back until Monday or Tuesday for episode 40. So have a great afternoon. Again, you can follow me at fearmeitsbre pretty much everywhere. And I will see everyone on episode 40.